What is up, guys? Welcome to a new video. As you all know, I'm always looking out for random new stuff, and I think I've actually found something. Maybe the new kind of Tank Ekko. A challenger player is using Triforce on KATARINA and spanking people as well. There are a couple of reasons why I'm specifically making a video about this, just one thing and not throwing it in with something else. Like, first off, I'm always looking for a replacement for Tank Ekko because of how OP and how good that was in Season 6. Also, the guy playing it was Challenger in Season 6. He's in Challenger ranked team as well. He's actually semi-professional, playing for Euronix Gaming, which is like semi-pro. He played KATARINA in Season 6 a lot, plus in the preseason, so he's actually an experienced KATARINA player, and he is playing this mid lane as well. So it's kind of like a bruiser version of KATARINA. AD, a little bit of AP sometimes as well. Trinity Force and more Mortius are your core items. Hextech Gunblade is another option as well that he sometimes builds. We'll get into that in a little bit later, but it's basically like a bruiser or the good old Tank Ekko, but Tank KATARINA, AD KATARINA. There are going to be timestamps down in the description, by the way. We're going to go for like how it actually works, how it works with the kit and stuff like that. We're also going to go in for build and also playstyle as well. So those are going to be down in the description. So the passive daggers on the floor do magic damage, right? This is where a lot of her damage actually comes from, but it has an AD ratio and a good one as well. You can also auto attack in between each time you jump. Your Shampoo has almost 3 times the AD ratio as AP, so it's actually not that bad building AD, and you're using both of these plus autos for most of your damage anyway. You jump all over the place and nothing they can really do. You still have your very high mobility as per usual, but you're now more tanky as well. You have the speed up from the phase, which is even worse because it's even harder to get away from her. You can actually dive towers a lot easier. You jump around constantly, you absorb more damage. You do have less burst, but it's like more sustained damage, I think. This was a lot how Tank Ekko worked actually. You're just as slippery as well. So basically, like, it's back to you don't die, you can't really get caught jumping all over the place, you do lots of damage, and you're tanky. You have a decent lane phase, partly because of Hextrinker mid lane. You're harder to kill anyway. It's a really good counter to a lot of AP mages in the meta right now. You still do good damage because it comes from the exact same sources that it would do with an AP version of the build, and it's like why AP, AD, Ekko, and Ezreal work. Like, you're both actually going to increase the damage on the ability. Just to make it obvious, you're not going to be one-shot bursting people like from 100% anymore, but you'll still do a lot of damage quite quickly. And also, by the way, you're going to be tanky. You have MR, health, armor, plus a lot of damage combined into these items. What makes this entire thing worse and harder to deal with is you have this damage, you're quite tanky, but it gives you a lot of healing as well. So you won't take a lot of damage, but you'll heal a good amount of it back. You also bring exhaust in the mid lane, which keeps in place with your ultimate, better in a longer fight too, and just really hard to 1v1 or ever duel her. Let's look at why it actually works specifically and with her kit as well. The first part of her passive with the cooldown reduction we don't really care about. The second part of it though, when you catch a dagger, it deals between 75 to 287 based on your level damage plus an AP ratio, but actually does 125% bonus AD as well. You're going to notice this with a lot of her abilities, but basically AD and AP are both contributing to the damage from the ability. Your Q is for the throwing the daggers. It's more positioning on the dagger to jump to than anything else. It's an AP ratio, so we're not too fussed about that apart from the base damage, and your W has no ratio either. Her E has a 25% AP ratio, the jump, but it has a 65% AD ratio, and her ultimate is 19% AP ratio and a 22% bonus AD ratio per dagger. So actually, even though everything does magic damage, so remember that it's magic damage, but AD is increasing the abilities just as much as AP except for her Q. Considering most of her damage comes from the ultimate and dagger spins anyway when you jump to someone, those are still AD. That is why this does so much damage. You also have to remember her base damage is quite high, so it means you don't necessarily need to build damage to do damage. This is how Tank Ekko was born, remember. His base damage was very high. He could build full tank and kill with that base damage. Now, it's not quite the same with KATARINA. Your ratios are decent, so she's rewarded more for building a bit of damage. Let's look at the items very quickly, though. So Hextrinker is a start versus AP. You get the shield, magic resist, AD. It stops them killing you as fast, and it's the same reason for like a Zed or a Talon would buy it first. Trinity Force is the core, right? You have your Sheen, you have your E to constantly proc the damage over and over because it's so low cooldown. You E in, you auto in between jumps, and the Sheen adds a lot of damage. Your Phage is health, but also the passive. You auto after the E, as we just said, for the Sheen, right? But it gives you extra speed, and if you actually kill a unit, it gives 60 move speed, and there's a lot of AoE damage, so you're likely going to do that. Overall, you have the Sheen proc, AD attack speed, cooldown reduction, and health. It's actually a very good item. The only stat you're wasting is the mana. More Mortius is 45 magic resist, so also good against mid laners, 50 AD, which is actually 70 when the shield proc, spell vamp plus lifesteal. Actually, you're going to use both of them. It's a 350 to 400 magic shield, 10% cooldown reduction. Overall, a lot of AD actually, which buffs your damage, plus you become even harder to kill, and it gives you some sustain, which works for your autos and spells as well. Gunblade is kind of like that idea, but on steroids. So if you're against an AD mid, you don't need the magic resist from more, so we can get this for damage instead. It's the same idea, 40 AD, 80 AP buffing both ratios, which is amazing. So both of those stats are actually increasing your ability damage. It heals for 15% of all of your damage, autos, and spells, even better than more spell vamp plus lifesteal actually. And also you do 250 plus damage and a slow from the active. aggressive. This is actually a really good item on Katarina anyway, no matter how you build her, which provides a ton of damage and healing, but in my opinion it's also better with a tanky-ish build, so you take less damage but you heal a lot back as well. To round out the build, he often gets a Guardian Angel, which is resistances, but it lets you dive in, not be afraid at all if you eventually fall, and also Sunfire Cape. It's armor but also damage around you. You're close all the time because you're jumping in for daggers anyway, so you're going to have the health, armor, you're going to have the extra damage, which is kind of perfect really in this kind of build, and you also get this earlier in a top lane build, which we'll go into a bit later. Now when I was making this video, I got to this point and I was like, okay, wow, this is actually super smart. Like, it actually makes a lot of sense. Everything he builds and how he does this is actually a good idea. You still do good damage, which you're seeing on screen anyway. You're more tanky whilst doing that, and you're just as mobile. You have the healing, and it's actually just a really annoying but deadly version of Katarina. So let's move on to the build. You always start with a door and a shield. It's not that uncommon anyway. Regen, you take less abuse early, which is perfect because you aren't the strongest early. Versus AP, you'll get the Hex Drinker into Triforce, and then Phage first normally, AD, health, and passive, which is all going to help you. More Man Mortius will be next, Guardian Angel, Sunfire, and then to round it off, some more health really. So Warmogs, Deadmans, maybe a Randoins as well. Versus AD, you would get Triforce, Phage first as normal, then Gunblade, Revolver first because you bonus damage on your auto and the AP as well, then Guardian Angel, then Sunfire. So very standard again. Top lane, you'll be versus AD normally, so you'd get Sunfire first, actually maybe, or Triforce in an easy lane. You'd be surprised with Sunfire though, because the AoE damage and your base damage is kind of like Tank Ekko, where you actually do a lot. You actually have a lot of kill potential while still being really hard to kill yourself. After Sunfire and Trinity Force, whichever order you get those in, you want a Gunblade and a Guardian Angel as well. Basically, more Man Mortius is really good, but only against AP damage. For Masteries, he takes Sunlords, but two different versions, so it's a new pick, remember. He's still testing this as well as you guys, as well as me as well. So we're just going to give you a couple of options, and you can pick what you prefer. The most common will be 12-18, really standard as you're seeing on screen. The other one will be 12-18 still, but with a couple of different choices. So Battle Trance in the first tree, because you are tanky necessarily, so you're going to be ramping up over time anyway. And also the cooldown reduction, not penetration, but I'm not sure it's really needed with this CDR from the build anyway, but it's not going to be bad. Runes are a bit different, so there's two versions. Again, well, actually there's three. The most common versus AP is AD reds, health per level yellows, magic resist or magic resist per level blues, and AP quints. Versus AD, he takes a different page. It's kind of the same, but cooldown reduction per level blues instead of magic resist. The other one that he's testing right now, it seems, is AD reds, health per level yellows, magic resist per level blues, and AD quints. But in my opinion, AP quints should in theory be a bit better, and that's what he's using right now. So for playstyle in the lane, it plays basically the same, but was still actually quite aggressive, especially after your first base and you get the Phage. Your Shumpo and your dagger spins are going to be doing a lot of damage still with this build, and you're more durable, so you can spin in, you can auto spin away for a really good easy trade. He really plays this aggressive though. I can't say that actually enough. He's constantly trying to get daggers near them or zoning them away. If they step forward, he will try to dive in and just trade with a dagger or kill them. You have to remember that one, you are not as weak as you probably think you are early. This goes for just Katarina in general. You're not like the old cat as much, to be honest. You're actually kind of strong if you can get these dagger trades. Number two, just because you're AD doesn't actually mean you need to auto attack spam constantly. Your AD is buffing your abilities just like AP would. Just because you're going AD, it doesn't matter. You play very similar. Your abilities are your damage. It's just not as much burst. It's more consistent and you're a bit more tanky. In most of the games I've watched, actually, he normally kills his opponent early into the lane phase, and these are challenger players that he is going against. That should give you an idea of how aggressive and good this pick actually can be. Mid-game, you want to push and roam just like a normal Katarina would. The advantage is that you being more tanky, your base damage is still nuts, and you can dive in and 1v2 almost, actually. It's kind of sad that I'm saying this, playing AD a lot myself, but really good versus the enemy AD carry who cannot deal with how slippery you are. They can't kite you at all. It's also really hard for supports to help their AD carries because of how slippery you are. You can jump away from the support but still be onto the AD carry. It's such an issue because you can't get away from her, but you can't deal with the damage yet either, and they can't really kill her through the extra HP that she has or extra tanky stats. This is kind of like Season 7 summed up in a nutshell. It's already really hard for AD carries, and now you have this bruiser AD Katarina who's going to jump on top of you. You can't run away from her, but she is going to kill you. In teamfights, it's still very similar, except you want to play a bit smarter, I guess. Kind of daggers, and you jump around like a madman while trying to weave in autos after every jump for the sheen damage. That is kind of your objective and how you damage people. It plays basically the same actually, except you're going to be diving in, doing a lot of damage, and then chasing after them a lot. This is one of the points. Like, you're so mobile that they can't really get away from you, and that's all you need. You just need a bit of time to kill them. You will still do a good amount of damage. It's not just instant burst, so keep that in mind though, and you might need a few more jumps to get the kills, but that is fine because you're tanky enough to easily last the extra time anyway. This is probably going to change and adapt a little bit over the next like however long couple of weeks or something as this gets more popular, but hopefully this could give you a little bit of a heads up. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, but for now, let's go to the road boss.